What happened in the fifth inning last night was not just a baseball play. It was a moment that may have permanently changed the course of the 2026 season, and possibly Shohei Ohtani's career. Two Tampa Bay Rays players made what can only be described as deliberately dangerous contact with Ohtani on the mound, leaving the Dodgers' most irreplaceable player writhing on the field. The umpire, in an unprecedented ruling, confiscated the batter's uniform on the spot. And within hours, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts stepped in front of the microphone and made an announcement about Ohtani's two-way role that shocked every fan watching. Tonight, we break down every detail of what happened, what it means for Ohtani, and why this moment could reshape the entire conversation around baseball's greatest player. Let's start with what actually happened in that fifth inning. Ohtani was on the mound, completely in control of the game at that point, working efficiently, keeping the Rays' batters off balance with his sweeper and sitting around 99 miles per hour on the fastball. Then it happened. First, one Rays player made contact that crossed every line of acceptable baseball conduct. And then, moments later, a second Rays player did the same. What did you make of it watching in real time? Watching it live, my immediate reaction was disbelief. Because Ohtani is not someone who puts himself in a vulnerable position out there. He's always incredibly aware of what is happening around him on the mound. So when you see him go down like that, you know immediately something is very wrong. The first contact could, in a very generous reading, be explained away as accidental. But the second one? That is where the story changes entirely. You don't see that twice in the same inning by coincidence. The body language of the Rays players in that moment told the whole story before the umpire even moved. And the umpire's reaction was extraordinary. We've never seen anything like that. Confiscating the batter's uniform right there on the field, that's not in any standard rulebook enforcement we've witnessed in a regular season game. What does that tell you about how serious the situation was? It tells you the umpire made a judgment that this was not a borderline call. This was not something he needed to review or discuss with the crew. The decision was immediate and final. Confiscating the uniform is symbolic. It's saying this player is not just ejected from this game. He is removed from the identity of the sport in this moment. And then came the lifetime ban. That word, lifetime, is one that gets almost never used in the context of an on-field incident. It signals that what happened was viewed not as a competitive infraction but as something far more deliberate. Now let's talk about the injuries themselves. Ohtani was seen grabbing his shoulder and his left side before being walked off the field. The Dodgers medical staff came out quickly. What are your concerns when you see those two specific areas affected? The shoulder is obviously the most serious concern for any pitcher. For Ohtani specifically, after everything he went through with the Tommy John surgery in 2023, any shoulder situation is going to be treated with extreme caution. The Dodgers are not going to rush anything. They are going to take every day that's needed. But the left side, that's what I was watching closely. A pitcher who takes a blow to the left side of their torso, near the ribcage, risks something that doesn't always show up immediately on imaging. Breathing mechanics, core rotation, delivery follow-through, everything a pitcher does runs through that area. From a hitter's perspective, you think about what it means to face Ohtani when he's not at full physical capacity. And honestly, even an Ohtani at 85% is a serious problem for any lineup. But for Ohtani himself, the competitive standard he holds himself to means that a limited version of himself is psychologically very difficult. He doesn't want to be on the mound if he can't execute the pitches he believes in. That's the part that doesn't show up in any medical report. The physical recovery is one thing. The confidence to stand on the mound and trust your arm to do what it normally does, after something like this, that's a different kind of recovery entirely. And with someone like Ohtani, who relies so completely on his arm mechanics and his explosive delivery, any hesitation in that process shows up immediately in the results. And then came Dave Roberts. Within hours of the incident, Roberts made an announcement about Ohtani's two-way playing status that nobody was expecting. He framed it as an emergency decision. What do you think Roberts was trying to communicate? Roberts is a manager who chooses his words carefully. When he uses the language of an emergency decision, he's not being dramatic for the cameras. He's signaling to the organization, to the league, and to Ohtani himself that the Dodgers are taking a different posture going forward. The phrase, "from now on," is the most important part of what he said. That's not a week-to-week assessment. That's a structural change. The Dodgers are deciding, in the wake of this incident, that the current arrangement, where Ohtani both pitches and hits on the same schedule, may need to be reevaluated from a player protection standpoint. But here's what makes this complicated. Ohtani is not someone who wants to be protected. His entire identity as a baseball player is built on doing both things at the highest level. If Roberts is suggesting any kind of limitation on that, even temporarily, you're going to have a real conversation between those two men that goes beyond strategy. And from a pure roster standpoint, what does it mean for the Dodgers if Ohtani's pitching schedule has to change? It changes everything. This Dodgers team is built around Ohtani's contributions in both directions. As a hitter, his numbers this season have been historically significant, a batting average well above .400 in recent weeks, an on-base percentage near .500, slugging over .600. Those numbers are the best in the National League. But his pitching, that 0.74 ERA, is the foundation of the team's rotation identity. If the Dodgers lose even 30% of his pitching contribution, they need another arm to absorb those innings in a pennant race. Let's talk about what this means for the Cy Young Award race, because before this incident Ohtani was clearly the frontrunner. He had posted an ERA in the 0.74 range. He was accumulating innings efficiently. He was beginning to meet every benchmark voters traditionally look for. The Cy Young picture was becoming clearer by the week. Ohtani was not just a statistical candidate, he was the candidate that every pitcher in the league was measuring themselves against. The Phillies' Sanchez with his 1.47 ERA was making a strong case. The Brewers' Misiolowski with his historically high escape rate. These are legitimate competitors. But Ohtani had pulled ahead in the conversation because he was doing something no Cy Young winner has ever done, pitching at that level, while also being the best hitter in his league on the same days. Now that narrative is uncertain. Voters don't penalize a player for injury, but the innings pitched question, which was already the biggest challenge for Ohtani, becomes even more pressing. If he misses 3 or 4 starts, the gap in total innings narrows significantly. And Sanchez and Misiolowski will not slow down. From a pure pitching standpoint, what the injury does is force voters to do something uncomfortable. They have to weigh a partial season of historically dominant performance against a full season of excellent but less extraordinary performance from someone else. And historically, the Cy Young has gone to the full-season pitcher in those close races. That's true. But the counterargument is the ERA. An ERA of 0.74 is not just leading the league, it is rewriting what we thought was possible at this level of competition. Even if Ohtani pitches 150 innings instead of 170, his earned run average may still be so far beyond anyone else's that voters find it impossible to overlook. So where does this all stand tonight? Ohtani has been injured, the player responsible has been banned for life, Roberts has announced changes to how Ohtani is managed going forward, and the Cy Young race just became significantly more complicated. What I'm watching for in the next 48 hours is the imaging results. Everything else, the roster decisions, the Roberts announcement, the award conversation, flows from what those reports show. If it's something structural, we're talking about a timeline that extends into July. If it's something that heals quickly, Ohtani may be back on the mound sooner than anyone expects. And that last part matters. Because if there is one player in baseball right now who can return from an incident like this and immediately pitch at an elite level, it is Shohei Ohtani. His physical resilience is extraordinary. His mental composure under pressure is something we've seen demonstrated over and over this season. The early innings against the Diamondbacks showed us a pitcher who doesn't panic. The question now is whether his body gives him the chance to show that again. That is exactly right. And for the Rays organization, tonight is about facing the consequences of something that went far beyond competitive baseball. For the Dodgers, it is about protecting the most important player in the sport. And for the rest of the league, it is a reminder that Shohei Ohtani is not just a statistic or a highlight. He is something genuinely fragile and genuinely irreplaceable. What happens next will define not just this season, but the legacy of this era of baseball.